Well, hey, what an honor to be here. It's always an honor to be at Zig Ziglar's headquarters and to have an opportunity to present. It's an honor to just come through the halls and see all the memorabilia and feel his presence. Would you agree with that? Yes. And I am just, one of the things I've learned among many from Zig is that gratitude is the healthiest of all of our attitudes. And I'm just a very grateful person. I've really tried to instill that in my children, evidence of the self-taught card. But I'm especially grateful, even more so, to be here today. One of my favorite stories from Zig Ziglar, and I'm not going to tell the story, but it was one of the first that I've heard, and I know you guys have heard it, and that is the Kansas City airport story. How many's heard this Kansas City airport story? By show of hands. Not everybody. Most people have heard that story. Not you, man. You not heard that? It's a story about perspective. It's a story about getting to the Kansas City airport after a very long day and wanting to get home to Dallas to be told that his flight was delayed. All right, so we've heard that story, and he does it extremely well. I've shared that story before, but you know, it's Zig's story, so it's not quite as effective. Well, coming in this week, I got my very own airport story. And I am delighted to be able to share it. In fact, I share that with Cheryl here, who happens to be from Charlotte, North Carolina, as I'm from Wilmington. And I didn't realize it at the time. I asked today, but we were on the very same flight, weren't we, Cheryl? From Charlotte to Dallas-Fort Worth. Now, like most of you, I have done a lot of flying. And I've flown in all kinds of conditions, and I've had those landings, and you know, and I don't even think about it anymore. Probably for a lot of you that travel a lot, I just want to get on my plane. I'm polite to everybody that I engage with, right, Michael? But I just want to kind of get in my space, get settled in, and read or study. I can go to sleep on the drop of a dime in an airplane. So whatever time of the day or whatever strikes me, but I try to use that as productive time. So that's kind of what I'm doing coming all the way in. So I'm sitting in the exit row on the aisle. And as you're making that approach into DFW, for all of you who have done that so many times, it's just kind of second nature, but it's kind of a long approach. But like Cheryl, I kind of noticed it was a little bit unique approach, wasn't it, Cheryl? Yeah, very unique. And so, but I'm thinking, you know, oh, we're going to get in early. Let's see. I think Connie is going to have a book that I need from Brian. I wonder if Brian's playing. I'm just kind of going through my routine. I got to get my rental car and come in. And we're just a few hundred feet above. And boy, when we hit the runway, we kind of came in at an angle and we went, boom! And we popped up like that. I mean, not just a hard landing. I'm talking about a pow! And a pow again, right, Cheryl? And we were running out of runway, folks, and at the last second, he never got the front wheel down. He juiced it and we went back up. So I'm especially grateful to be here. I mean, I'm really grateful to be here. Here's a little tidbit to that. All through the flight, as I got on my flight that came in from Wilmington was very tight, so I rushed up from Terminal A to Terminal D in Charlotte. So I'm sitting in the exit row, and I see this gentleman sitting here. Don't we kind of always look and see in advance who we're sitting beside? Yeah, come on, we all do that, right? And I see this gentleman. He seems to be a pleasant enough fellow, but he's just sitting there, and he's already got the elbows out. And I'm 6'2", 210 pounds. I take up an airplane seat, especially the way they build them today, right? And I don't want anybody else's part of the seat. I just want all of mine, right, Matt? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just sitting there, and but I noticed this guy, so all along the flight, he and I play elbow war. It's very polite, and he's cordial, but we don't exchange a lot. Man, as soon as that plane hit, bam, bam, and we went taking back off, oh, we just chatted like little friends from there on in. You know? It was just like, hey, where are you from? I'm from Wilmington. I'm from Southport. I just got married, is what the guy said. A week ago, I hadn't even been able to be on my honeymoon. You know, we're playing it through. So I'm very grateful to be here. You know, all across America, people are making promises this time of the year, right? Now, at ZLC, we don't really make promises because we understand, Tyler, the value of setting goals and the difference. And in fact, I flew from Wilmington to Charlotte with my old college roommate I hadn't seen in 20 years. And he was on his way to Chicago for a big meeting. I said, what are you going to be doing in Chicago? Well, I'm just meeting with with all the guys at corporate, and we're going to be making a bunch of promises we won't be able to keep. Right? Everybody knows that? See, the problem with promises is they create pressure, right? And they're easily broken. But promises, in and of themselves, don't create behavioral change. Character growth creates behavioral change. I'm glad to see you taking notes. And I'm going to encourage you to take notes, and you're going to find why I love PowerPoint. This is my PowerPoint for today. This is it. Because sometimes I've found that inside of PowerPoint, we tend to get a little comfortable, and it enables us a bit. While it can be a very effective tool, it sometimes inhibits people taking notes. I had the pleasure of attending and being involved in several meetings with Mr. Zig Ziglar. I never saw Mr. Ziglar, when he wasn't up front speaking, that he did not have a notepad taking notes. True, Tom? In fact, I had the honor of speaking at at the Monday morning devotional, 2005 or something like that. And in doing that, here I was speaking at my hero's, corporate office on a Monday morning for a devotional, and there was Mr. Ziglar right there off to the left. This wasn't in this office at the time, taking notes. And I was just, boy, here he is. What an example for all of us, right? So I'm going to encourage you to take notes, because I'm just going to build some basic fundamentals. Who's familiar with Vince Lombardi, the Green Bay Packer great coach? Most of the people? Look, we got to see hands again. Who's familiar with Vince Lombardi? Just about everybody. All right. I'm going to encourage you to get to know who Vince Lombardi is and was. But at the beginning he's a great championship football coach, but at the beginning of every season, now we're talking about professionals that have played football all their life, and they were the best of the best, and the Green Bay Packers of that time were the best of the best. And how did Vince Lombardi start out training camp? He held up a football and said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And what I want to do today is I want to introduce the basic fundamentals of selling. And I want to introduce them not in that something that Edwin did or created. I've just been a student of them. But they are the fundamentals of whom I believe Tyler's the greatest salesman of all time. I think you're probably familiar with him. His name's Zig Ziglar. I believe Zig Ziglar, with all of my heart, was the greatest salesperson of all time. And while he may have started selling pots and pans, he never stopped selling. He sold till the very end. And so to know him as a motivational speaker, that's a byproduct of what he was selling. To be an author of over 33 books, to have impacted over 250 million people. But Zig Ziglar at his core was a salesman, and he was selling you on you. And I believe he kept selling right up to that Z in the sky. In fact, he's still selling. Would you agree? One of the things I love among many things about ZLC are the lives that have been changed and shared right here in this room. 8 classes now, is that right? 8 classes, tears are shared, bonds are made. Man, that's special. And it is worthy of high praise, right? And then to see the talent for those that can write and stand up and present, man, that is phenomenal. But let's not make any mistake if we really want to, and all that we've got to have. But if we have all those things and we don't become great salespeople, how can we really look in the mirror and say that we are extending the legacy of Zig Ziglar? I don't personally believe that you can. Michael, how about you? So to do that, we've got to take not a casual glance at selling, and I know there are a lot of talented salespeople here and throughout the ZLC, but hey, I've been selling for 28 years. So You're New to Sales by Brian Flanagan. I took it home last night and learned something. We can never stop learning. So an in-depth look always reveals more than a casual glance. So I want to give you some basic fundamentals today. I want you to take note of them, that if you will apply them and continue to apply them, I promise you, I absolutely promise you, you'll be better than where you are. You saw something on the screen yesterday that said you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. In this, I'm going to ask you to just go as far as you can see. And Tracy, when you get there, I promise you, you'll be able to see further, okay? So we want to identify a process. And what that does is it simply takes the pressure off. And I want to build that in 4 fundamentals of selling. Number 1, please write this down, I encourage. Selling is a process, not an event. Selling is a process, not an event. And because selling is something you do with and for someone, not to someone, right? Selling is something you do with and for someone. Now just think about that for just a minute. Because what that does is, if someone feels like you're doing something with and for them, then their resistance is down, right? They become more open-minded. We all need and want people to do things with and for us, right, Tyler? But see, where the resistance comes up is, oh, you're doing something to me, right? And I don't want to give away that. So to have a process is simply a methodology that allows you to gain more information. He who has the most information has the most influence. I'd write that down. He who has the most information has the most influence. So let's introduce how we can have and gain more information in a way that engages people so that they're open, and now we're running alongside one another, right? Because that's what it is. Selling is a transference of feeling, how I feel. How do you all feel about being in the life-changing business? Oh, come on. How do you feel about being in the life-changing business? Right, we got to take that enthusiasm, that passion, but we got to have a purpose behind it. Here's what the process looks like. Now, I want you to know that I do not have time today, and I'm not going to go through the entire process. I'm just going to introduce it around the 4 fundamentals of selling. But I encourage each of you, in fact, I strongly encourage each of you to enroll in Sell by Design, which is held here. It's going to be held in Houston at the end of the month. It's going to be held in Charlotte. I'm going to encourage you to do that. It's a corporate, open event that the Ziglar organization is doing, Zig Ziglar International is doing. Because in that, you get a full day of all of this information. Sell by Design. I don't believe you can build your business to the level that you need to build your business without enrolling in Sell by Design. I encourage you to do that. But the process looks like that. Remembering that sales is a process, not an event. I'm going to give you, you don't feel like you got to write all these down right away. I want to give you fundamental number 2, and then we're going to come and kind of walk through that. You're going to like this one. Tracy, you're going to like this one, man. I'm just kidding. You make more money solving problems than you do selling products. Who likes to make money? You make more money solving problems than you do selling products. And it's so interesting. You see Brian Flanagan is a master of this, but when you see him put people in a case study and they kind of have to get out of their comfort zone a little bit, you know what the first thing they do, Michael? They fall right back into selling products. Every single time. So it's a discipline that we have to work on through practice and practice and practice. Again, what a great example from Mr. Ziglar. Is he constantly practiced, he constantly worked. I've done a version of this presentation hundreds and hundreds of times all over America. I was in my hotel room for 3 hours last night practicing, speaking to that white wall in front of me. Practice, practice. So fundamental number 2 is you make more money solving problems than you do selling products. And boy, we've got a great vehicle to solve problems, don't we? I mean, if in fact character growth creates behavioral change, yes, sir.
I just want to interject.
Please.
Some of you know I'm a big Rabbi Daniel Lappin fan, and one of my favorite of his sayings is this: our God in heaven is most pleased when we are obsessive about solving the problems of his children.
Wow. That's powerful.
Our Father in heaven, our God in heaven, is most pleased with us when we are obsessive about solving the needs of his children.
And let's think about who we're solving problems for. For the most part, it's the small business owners of America, right? The very backbone of America. And more than ever, they need us. They need this life-changing information. The statistics reflect it. The world around us is crying out for it. And we're in a great position in order to do that. Number 3, people buy for their reasons, not yours. People buy for their reasons, not yours. And the reasons are driven by, these are 3 big keys: their feelings, their motives, and their beliefs. It's amazing to go and work with new salespeople. And Tammy, here's what I've discovered. They'll go through the entire time with that prospect, and prospect's not a word I overly use, and they will never once ask, how do you feel about that? What was your motive when you initiated the last training program you did? So an example of how that might be phrased, as I'm going to be introducing POGO, is if I'm speaking to someone and I make the statement, maybe I set it up by talking about promises as they're maybe defining their goals for the year, all right? And I say, one of the challenges with promises is it creates pressure and they're easily broken. I think I can probably get some acceptance to that, right? What I want to say, then I want to make a statement and I want to ask this question. I want to say, what I've uncovered, what I've discovered, Tammy, is that character growth creates behavioral change. And I'm looking for acknowledgement back from the individual I'm speaking with. And then I want to simply say, how do you feel about that? If they say, I think you're spot on, I absolutely agree with that, then now I've started a dialogue, right, that can lead me. So what would it mean to you and your organization if we helped work on behavioral change? Well, I think that we'd be more productive. We'd have a better opportunity to hit these numbers than the promises that we've set forth. And we might even be able to open another location similar to what we've done in Nashville. You see? He's just closed himself, right? Inside of our process. So inside the process, the P stands for plan and prepare. I don't believe we do enough inside of that. I think we take a casual glance at planning and prepare. I'm going to just hit these. I'm going to come back to this point. The R's relate. We all understand that. Everybody in this room is a great relator of people. Open the dialogue is where we're going to talk about POGO. POGO simply is a catalyst for opening the dialogue. We've got to be able to confirm the needs once we open the dialogue, right? Well, then we've got to be able to explain our recommendation, sell the value of ourselves and our recommendation, our organization, and boy, we have a lot of value to sell, don't we, Matt? And then we're simply going to ask for the objective, which is really the order. Oftentimes you see a salesperson go all the way through and never ask for the order. It's what the process looks like, perfected by Mr. Ziegler and Brian Flanagan himself. But I want to take a case study and take the P for just a minute and explain how when we spend enough time preparing, what that can mean for your opportunity to grow and gain business. I have an organization in my hometown called Marcraft Cabinets, okay? Years ago, we had Ziegler Performance Group, and Michael Norton, Tom, invited, I think, a lady to the office. It was the high-rise office. I don't remember, maybe the one before here. She was a guru in cold calling. And so she kind of led us in a day seminar on cold calling, or half a day, and then the breakout was we would leave and go into an office or an assigned place and literally make calls back into our market. That makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's a practical, applicable form of selling, right? And it's a need. Everybody with me? Well, there was a pretty big group there and only so much space. I was very, very honored to be able to go and make a call. Anybody want to venture a guess of the office that I got to call from? Say it? Zig Ziglar's office. Man, and at that time it was mainly ceremonial, okay? He wasn't there on a day-to-day basis when he was there, but it was his office. Pretty powerful, right, Tyler, to be able to make calls? You think I was pretty energized about making those calls? So Marcraft Cabinets was a call that I made. So I want to do a little planning, right? So you think about it. I want you to think right now, and I want you to write down one business that you want to target back in your local market. Just write it down. And I'm going to encourage it to be a mid-size, small to mid-size, less than 20 million, 15 to 50, 60, 70 employees. Come on, let it come to your mind and write it down. Got one? Got one? Here's what I knew about Marcraft Cabinets. I knew, oh, okay, the owner of Marcraft Cabinets, his name is Joe Jacoby, and I went to church with Joe for a little while, and I played in a little bit of church league basketball, and that was it, man. That's all I knew about him, right? But it was a start, right? So as you plan, take what you know, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see further. I knew only about that. I made a phone call, and I explained what I was doing, who I was. Obviously, I said, hey, man, I'm calling you from Zig Ziglar's office, right? And it started with that, and Joe said, well, that might be something we might be interested in, Edwin, but the person you need to speak with is Alan Tu. Alan Tu is the Chief Operating Officer. So how this kind of unfolds, all right, as we introduce POGO, is in my planning and preparation, an area I don't think that we go deep enough on. I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So it lended itself to a call with Alan Tu, which created a meeting. Inside of that meeting, I'm going to take my overall process and I'm going to plug in POGO. Now, the wonderful thing about POGO, and everybody can see the words up there, is it gives you a template, a frame in which to use, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to go in this order. Based on the person's personality, all right, and we understand about DISC profile and being able to read personalities and how quickly we arrive at assumptions, we could potentially start with organization, right? Some people weren't very comfortable speaking about themselves right away. So it doesn't have to follow this order, but I found that typically it's an order that I follow. So I got to know a little bit about Alan too. Here's what I uncovered. I found out that Alan had cancer, pretty serious cancer. I also found out that, man, his heart was open for growth. Found out that maybe his time was somewhat limited, and he was now thinking a little differently than he had been thinking previously. I also found out that one of their top people, because I want to know who the top people are in the company, don't you, Tyler? C. Edwards. A guy by the name of C. Edwards came up. So as I started kind of moving along and filling in the blanks, I found out that C was their top salesperson. I found out what Marcraft did. They simply resold manufactured cabinets into the housing and building market, and this was in the mid-2000s, so this was a very busy time. I found out they had the challenges of every challenge of every company that was growing fast, right? How do you keep up with it? Do we have the right salespeople? Is our operational working in link? You see how these things kind of unfold. And I did that simply by having this structure. And that was about all that I found out initially. But I did book the engagement. I'm going to show you later. I don't think you have that printed out right yet, Kanya, the testimonial. Yeah. So, but as I talked about it, here's something that you're going to find. People are going to say, man, I'd like to do it, but I can't take everybody out of the field. Anybody been down that road? So these guys were at their peak. Here's what I said. Because that became an obstacle for me to move forward, right, with them. I think we probably organizationally need it. I know it's in alignment with our goals, but I mean, we can't pull everybody out of the field. We're so busy, we're working double. When do you have a sales meeting where you have all of your staff members, your leaders of your staff members together? Right? That became my bridge. The reason that I was able to transition to that fairly quickly and comfortably is because I have a process in my head. I know exactly where I am inside the process. You see, when things happen, when you're inside the process, and maybe you're opening in a dialogue and something gets disconnected, oftentimes we kind of lose our way. And what do we do when we lose our way? We start pulling out brochures, we start talking about products, we forget the fundamentals of selling. But if you've got a process in place, it's so seamless, you just move back. Oh, we need to relate a little more. I heard something key there. I need to confirm that need. So you're able to move back and forth when you have a process in place. I'm going to explain my recommendation, all right? I think that maybe is something we need to do, but I'm not sure we can do it. It's where are we? I've got to come back and confirm those needs again. I've got to now ask another important question. I did get in the meeting with the group. I got 10 minutes. Not 2 days. I got 10 minutes. But in 10 minutes, I was able to, one, let them see my passion. And guess what else I was able to do before I went back, David? I did a whole lot more research on Marcraft cabinets. I knew everything about, as much as I could discern about their operational. I took what I learned inside the process, inside of POGO, and I applied it. I found out that C. Edwards played college basketball. I knew that he had a daughter named Bailey and Jensen and a little son named Tripp. See, we started creating some common bond that I was able to interweave in that little 10-minute time frame, because I spent a lot of time planning and preparing. Okay? Fundamental number 4. People don't buy your products and services. They buy what your products and services will do for them. Those 4 fundamentals give you an opportunity to finish writing. And you heard Zig say this many times. People have never bought a mattress, they buy what? A good night's sleep. Nobody, they didn't buy this air conditioned unit that's running out there. What did they buy? The cool air. Nobody's buying training, they're buying behavioral change. They're buying a better way to achieve more, right? They buy what your products and services will do for them. Let me give you an example, taking you through POGO, of how that worked for me with a company called Stevenson Automotive in the Wilmington area. Largest car dealer in the region. They have the Honda store, they've got the Hyundai store, they've got stores in Jacksonville, and they've got this annoying guy. Anybody, I mean, hear advertising all the time where it's just, every time you hear it, you can't push the button fast enough, right? And this guy, that's his voice. And they're on the radio, every station, all the time. They're on the TV. And they got this tagline that just kind of stays with you. Well, that's who I got to meet with. He's a friend of mine, so I'm going to say it on camera, his name's Pat Kabbalah, all right? He wasn't a friend at the time. So we sat down, and I went through the process. So I did what most of you would do, is I entered into his office. Of course, the first thing I heard before I even got into the office is, hey, we've got training all the time. We got all these car gurus, and man, we're a big company, and I would probably say it, but come on in, right? So I noticed Pat, like most of you would, had pictures of his family all over the wall, all right? And we began in our process as we were talking about POGO, personal, talking a little bit about that. Pat, hey, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I get to hear you on the radio all the time. And what was your decision for being involved and so actively as the face of your advertising campaign? It seems to have been very effective. It's something that I knew that he was comfortable talking about and we were talking about. We talked about that. Pat, I purchased a vehicle here. Tell me, a little more about your organization. And so he's talking about that, right? What are your goals? I mean, he said, one of the things I've noticed about in the car business is it kind of starts over every month. Is that kind of the culture you have? He said, man, that's it. He said, it's a grind to the end of the month. We're heroes for a day and we got to start back over. What's he really telling me there? Right? If you take an in-depth look, I'm getting a lot more information, right? And Pat, you have managers inside of your overall management team that are working the day-to-day operations? Well, yeah, I've got sales managers. I got a new car manager, or a sales manager. Tell me about your top producers. Man, I got 10 or 15% of my guys, man, they are just killing it. They're making really great money. They don't really need to be managed. They go about and do their job. And I said, well, where's your heartburn? What's your goal? What do you really need and try to accomplish? If I could get more people operating out of that middle zone into that top zone, man, that's my goal. That's really my heartbeat. That's really what I want to do. And what's your obstacle? There's just not enough time in the day. That's what he told me. There's just not enough time in the day for me to do that. I'm here all the time. I'm here 6 days a week. It's a big grind. I feel like I'm always on the treadmill, right? And I said, so Pat, if we could work together and we could get, what I've heard you say, if we could get more of the people in the middle of your group moving up to the top line. See, I took what he said, right? What would that mean to your organization? I'll never forget it. He said, man, we'd hit our numbers, we'd all make more money, and the pressure would come off. And then I leaned in, Matt, not so close that I got into his body space, and I lowered my voice. I said, Pat, what would that mean to you personally? And I looked at the pictures, Tammy. He looked me in the eyes and he turned and he said, I get to spend more time with my children. You think we closed that deal, Jason?
Sir.
He said, when can you start? You see, POGO works, process works, because it starts from what's inside each and every one of you. You've got the competitive advantage inside of you. You are a Ziegler Legacy certified trainer. Your life has been changed for the better. Your story is still being written. You've got the canvas in front of you. We just got to go roll our sleeves up and go to work. But we don't want to go out there and just be aimless in that. We want to have a proven process that we know can start building this business. And let's really honor the legacy of Mr. Ziegler by helping more people. You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Man, sign me up for that. Right, Nathan? Sign me up for that. So that's what we have to do. But I want you to know that it works, and I want to equip you. We're going to take a little break in a few minutes, and I want to equip you coming back to go big game hunting. What's the town in New Mexico you're from, Matt?
Dora.
Dora.
The big D.
Let me tell you, if you go big gun hunting in Dora, New Mexico, and you're toting a squirrel gun, you're in trouble, aren't you? That's a bad day, isn't it? If you're down in South Georgia and you're going big game hunting and you're holding a little rabbit gun, that ain't very good, is it, Tyler? I know you're from the Atlanta area, but you got to venture down to South Georgia to get into that. In southeastern North Carolina, if I'm going hunting for a squirrel or a rabbit, and I got a big game gun and I happen to run up on a big tiger, I doubt there are very few in South, I'm okay, right? I want to equip you to go big game hunting. Here's what I mean by that. This very same process, while it works with small businesses in America, it works with mom and pops, it works at kitchen tables. When I say work, I'm not talking about manipulating. It serves is a better word, right? Because it creates an open dialogue. It also works with Coca-Cola, with Disney, with Tommy Hilfiger, with QVC. Why? Because I've done it. Not me, the process. I just became a student. I'll close with this, with the first sales job that I ever got out of college. And by the way, I've been fortunate enough to be the #1 salesperson at every organization I've ever worked for. It's because I never stopped working and I never stopped learning, but it's because of this information and continuing to be a student. So I went for the interview. His name was Bill McMullen. The name of the company was Novar. Northern Ohio Valley Audio Research is what it stood for. And Bill said, man, I really like you. I like your background. You're a sharp young kid, but you're inexperienced, and I can't hire you on my own. The vice president's going to be down next week. I want you to come back. His name's Bill B. Seth. I want you to meet Bill, because it would be a bit of a stretch. I mean, this is a straight commission job. I think you can do it, but I'm not, you get the idea, right? So Bill B. Seth comes down. He says, I don't know, Bill. I mean, he's a good kid, young kid. I don't think he's got this requires a lot of experience. This was direct cold calling. This was a one-call close. It was wonderful. Ultimately, a one-call close. You got to be able to have thick skin, right? But Bill said to Bill McMullen, if you want to hire him, it's your call. So Bill hired me, and he gave me Eastern North Carolina. Eastern North Carolina. Unbeknownst to a kid out of college, Eastern North Carolina had been beat to death. That'd been the graveyard of where salespeople had been for that company, right? And in Eastern North Carolina back then, it was tobacco, right? Not tobacco anymore, and little small mom and pop businesses. But the products we provided and the solutions we provided were perfect for a little small. So here's what he told me. 2 things. He said, Edwin, every morning I want you to be out in the field. I want you to be ready to work. Out in the field. Don't call me from your house. Don't call me from your hotel. Out in the field. And back then, it was a phone booth. Some of you guys don't even know what a phone booth looks like. We do. Yeah. David knows. Yeah. A phone booth. So I'd call at 8 o'clock every morning, and Bill McMullen would say, good morning, Novar. And I'd say, hey, Bill, it's Edwin. Hey, Tiger, you ready to go get them today? And that's how we started, with enthusiasm, right? The other thing he did is he gave me a cassette tape. He said, I want you to listen to this in the car as you're driving. And I'd drive hundreds of miles back and forth from Raleigh area to Eastern North Carolina. And it was this weird name in that cassette tape. Anybody want to venture a guess? Zig Ziglar. And that's what I listened to. And man, for the first several months, I sold a lot. I sold a lot. I mean, I sold my dog. I sold my stereo. I picked up water bottles or Coke bottles, sold those. I struggled, but I kept going. I kept going and kept applying it. And so now, 28 years later, I know that it works at Coca-Cola. I know that it works at Disney. Coca-Cola, one of the largest brands in the world. I was in the NASCAR sports marketing business. I had gotten Miller Brewing Company on board. Now, what we did in the NASCAR sports marketing business, if you're a NASCAR fan at all, you know there's a hood on the front of the car, right? And that's where the main sponsor goes. And we created this really unique collectible product, right, that consumers that were Jeff Gordon fans and Dale Earnhardt fans. Who's a Dale Earnhardt fan in here? Any? Cheryl, you're from Charlotte. There you go. Oh, all right. How many NASCAR fans do I have in here, by the way? Just a show of hands. I got a few. All right. But they were the hoods, 30 gauge aluminum, all right, bigger than that print, but not the full size of the hood. Sublimated printing on it, very high end. It really became a canvas. We started out with just the actual hood. It looked exactly like they ran on Sunday. And then we thought, well, this is really a canvas. We can kind of tell stories. So when Richard Petty, 7-time NASCAR champion, or Dale Earnhardt earned his 6th championship, we created sort of a mural. Dale Earnhardt Jr. won Daytona 500 for the first time. It's a picture of him. And, it really would but we were growing it inside of a collectible base. And I want to emphasize this to you because, you see, we make more money solving problems than we do selling products. That applies outside to our external customers, right? In this case, Miller Brewing Company, or before that, collectibles, people that wanted to buy them, people that sold to people who bought them, right? But it also applies inside your organization. How can you be a catalyst for change inside your organization? So the challenge is, how can you be a catalyst for change to help Ziglar Legacy Certified Group, Zig Ziglar International, go out and help and engage more people? See where I'm going? We got to be thinking about that as well. Because see, an in-depth look always reveals more than a casual glance. And if I took an in-depth look, I said, okay, we're somewhat limited. We've got this really cool product. But is it really a collectible? Or is it a corporate product? Because why wouldn't these companies that are spending millions of dollars sponsoring these race teams see this as a valuable entity? Right? See, I changed the language. It wasn't anymore a race hood. It was leverage for Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Miller Brewing Company for end cap space. You see what I mean? Everybody follow me? I had solved a problem, and I took we were a $20 million company. We took 800, 900,000, just a little bit of corporate business. In 2 years, Tyler, I turned that into $8 million. For a $20 million company, man. We weren't a $20 million company when we did that, right? Now, for some, it was a little easier than others. For Miller Brewing Company, still I had to apply everything here. I still had to apply POGO because those buyers are important. In fact, they're easy to blow you off because that wasn't a day-to-day need, right? They're selling beer, they're selling Pepsi, they're selling soft drinks. It's a highly competitive business, and you're just one of many vendors, right? They'll say, yeah, come to vendor day. But when you plan and you prepare and you perfect the process, you get inside. And when you get inside, you realize that the language they're speaking is shelf space, end caps. What if you had one of these hoods and you could offer this in promotion for every Winn-Dixie store in America? All of a sudden, they're interested. Then I noticed something. I thought, you know what I'm realizing is that these guys that are out there selling, men and women, they could use a little help with the fundamentals of selling too. So I had built Miller Brewing Company, built Anheuser-Busch, Pepsi. I had not gotten Coca-Cola because of the conflict of interest. And the president of the company came to me and said, I got some bad news. We're about to lose Coca-Cola, the license. The person that had been handling it, and that person left the company. Said, I'd like for you to take Coca-Cola as well. Do you feel like you can do it? I said, certainly, be glad to. So I got in there, and here's what I was able to fortunately implement inside of Coca-Cola. I got them to allow me to come in and work inside of their sales training groups and start sharing with them the fundamentals of sales. Start teaching process. I wasn't charging them to do that. I was just now alongside them so that they were better equipped to go out in the field. They sold more products, they got more space, 18 months later, we were named Vendor of the Year. You see, when you learn to solve problems, not selling products, I never talked about selling a race hood, but I sold tens and tens of thousands of them because I talked about leverage, competitive advantage. We've got to determine what the language is for Ziegler Legacy certified speakers and trainers inside of your market so that you can be equipped to go big game hunting, help the mom and pops of America, which I have a great passion for. And just know that if you're doing anything in addition to that, whether it's in the insurance business or whatever it might be, it helps people right at their kitchen table. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about referrals, and I'm going to identify 5 categories that will help you build and grow your business in 2016. Thank you very much.